Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. This episode of Slam the Gavel is sponsored by CPS Protect Consulting Services. A child protective services case is one of the most frightening experiences for any parent. Don't face it alone. Face it with confidence with Urgent Assist. By CPS Protect, you can have access to former CPS investigators to make sure you preserve your rights and protect your family. If you're facing CPS involvement and aren't sure where to turn, their child welfare consultants can help you. Visit cpsprotect.com/subscribe and enter the coupon code Slam the Gavel for 60% off your first year of Urgent Assist. And this is available in all 50 states. I have another announcement. Bradley's mother, Narcus Golan, passed away in the fall of 2022. Bradley is autistic and he's structured in routine therapies he receives for his autism 6 days a week. However, Italy just entrusted Bradley to Italian Social Services. If he is ruled to go back, he will face the next 3 to 4 years in the Italian foster care system, where he can't speak or understand the language. He will then be taken away from the only family he has ever known. Please call Governor Hochul at 518-474-8390 to please keep Bradley here safe in these United States. That's Governor Hochul, 518-474-8390. Hashtag keep Bradley safe. One last announcement. Go to the site, pleasedoyourjob.com. We need 2,500 more signatures to get a case open. That's pleasedoyourjob.com. I would totally appreciate that if everyone would sign that. I am bringing back on Lisa Goodpaster. I last had her on season 4, episode 107. And we talked about, when step parents interfere and the shit show of parental alienation. But we're going to talk about her book, Alienated, When Parents Won't Parent, because it was just an excellent read. I totally demolished the book by underlining and putting stars at the paragraphs. So welcome, Lisa. What has your response been with your book?
Good. People from my neighborhood to the girls that do my hair, they're former kids from divorce, and they get it. They do the same thing. They're, oh my gosh, it helps them even dig in more. Like, wow, I never thought about that. Also, professionals, psychologists texting me and saying, I'm sending you, this is me giving my clients your book. So it's been well received, and it's appreciated, especially by people in the industry that are trying to help alienated kids and their families. So it's a hard thing, but a necessary thing to do. So I'm glad it's out so we can talk about it. And
oh yes, we're going to talk about it. And of course, there's always the people that say this is pseudoscience. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, so pseudoscience is funny because the difference between pseudoscience and regular science is time. So time's up. It's no longer pseudoscience. And anybody wants to doubt that, read the book. If you don't believe me, I will eat every page in front of that. I will eat every page if you don't believe me that this is it. This is so real. Nobody could make this up. This is just one of, many kids that go through this stuff. It was just, my alienator was stupid enough to leave the proof behind, and so I used it for good.
That's kind of what I did too.
Right? That's what we can do. I mean, that's how we put so much emphasis on how powerful a narcissist is. No, they're not.
No. Yeah, but they are. This personality disorder type is just plain evil.
Oh, it's freaky. Yeah, there's some that are you're dealing with. Yeah, I would definitely say evil.
Yeah, would you go as far to say, because I think I might go as far to say that I think some of them are demonically possessed. I know we're going into Halloween. This is the Halloween month, but I swear I've seen it and wondered is, with the alienator I was dealing with, the lights were on, but no one was home, but somebody else was in there.
Yeah, definitely is uncomfortable as that word evil is. What when you think about an innocent child, whether it's a parent, a caregiver, to harm a child that way, it takes the evil. It takes the evil within you because we have free will,
Uh-huh.
right? We have free will. And so no, it's like, how can someone hurt a cat or a dog?
Mm-mm.
It's evil. Yeah.
So true. So true. Um, I don't know where to start here. Because this was just so fascinating. I mean, this is how I just go and demolish books. Um, okay, so the self-centered and status-seeking patterns of, let me see here, of the step parent. Okay, the patterns are apparent in those who are out only for themselves and think only their feelings matter. They are out to get whatever they can, and they need to feel important and admired. They are concerned with their image, and they tend to be extravagant. They want to keep up with the Joneses and will lie and exaggerate to protect their image. They desire status symbols, and they are opportunistic and jealous of others' success. Oh my God, did that hit home?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. And oftentimes when you're a kid, you look at that, you don't know the evil part about it. You just think, oh, okay, they're ambitious. You don't tear people down to get to where you want to go on your
Right,
path.
right. Because I my story that the ex's wife completely obliterated my life and job, but he led her to, he was a party, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You just don't do that to people.
Right.
But
So, yeah, my book does explain to your audience, just so that we jump into it. So my book is like a book and a resource,
mhm,
right? It's both. So when you talk about patterns, we all have patterns,
mhm.
and I refer to them in the way that I learned was their negative love patterns. But when you have someone that's doing something evil, they have specific behavioral patterns, and so that's what you're referring to
Oh,
is
definitely.
seeking behavioral patterns of an alienator. And I list all those patterns in my book, so your
And
audience,
it's
along
so
with the alienator script.
oh, no, it's just excellent. It's so well done. You wrote, when I was a child, this made me feel that I was in a mental prison, a psychological nightmare. As a child, I endured it and tolerated it while I internally hating what I saw her get away with. I felt lonely, scared, unwanted. I knew she hated me. So to be near my dad, I had to accept her perception of me. I never accepted it. And I never stopped trying to figure out what happened. So you must have been so resilient through this? Or would you
I
say,
think I was resilient enough to loom. A lot of people have their opinions about being resilient, and you know, I'll just say this: like when you grow up hearing that your grandmother was 15, got pregnant with my grandpa, and was having twins in Mexico, not knowing she was going to have twins, still stays with my grandpa. They were married over 62 years. To me, that's resilience, right? Like you're having kids with no diapers, no strollers. So, I mean, I kind of feel like, I guess, being Latina was a big force of love for me. And so I'm very proud of that because it was like I call myself the Latina Cinderella. I didn't have a prince, but I had aunts, uncles, cousins, and I was able to I was surrounded more by love than I was by hate.
Mhm.
But I never wanted to go near my mom because of what this malignant, narcissistic, psychopath stepmother did and wrote. So, yeah.
And so your mother missed out on your milestones, which is so sad. I mean, fathers are going through this too,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, it was very, I know that a lot of parents will say, they freak out. Like, I can't read the first part of your book. Go to the second part. It's okay. Because it can be really emotional for targeted parents. It's really important because it sheds light on why is my kid so defensive? Because they talk about being brainwashed. Well, here it is. I was mined,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I had the insight. No kid should ever protect their dad. But when you understand how it kind of moved through my life, alienators never stop. There's stuff in that book that she still believes to this day. So it's very, yeah, it's very disorienting. I endured it. So when you endure something, you're just going through it. You're surviving it, but you're really enduring it, hoping that it's just going to go away. So that's what it was like for me. Like, I would just shove down all those painful moments, meeting my parents, thinking that one was bad and one needed protection. And then, seeing my dad have my other siblings born. Now I have to stay really quiet because now they're babies. And you're growing up under the narrative that you're an evil stepchild and you're a kid. No one's going to believe you. So yeah, I had to take some hits.
Other people say kids aren't resilient. They're not that resilient because some of them maybe don't come through this or recognize it in time.
That's pretty interesting. I don't know. I feel like I know different levels of resilience. Some people, look, trauma teaches you, it's how we survive. Being resilient is a good thing. And whether we get it because it's just in our nature, right? Or whether we get it because we grow through something. Anytime we go through pain or suffering, that is a part of our path. We can't get rid of it. And I know as parents, we want to minimize as much as trauma for our kids, but we also have to understand, this is why I talk about my son being a wrestler, like learning to overcome, learning to lose first, learning to take hits, because when things are handed to you, you don't get that appreciation. Where like when I held my son for the first time, I was like, was love, just enormous amount of love I had for him. So resilience is it. You can learn to be resilient, and I think if you want to be resilient, you can be. I think it just depends on what you tell yourself. If you're telling yourself, I'm not resilient, you're not going to be resilient. My kid's not going to be resilient. That you're already then narrating their path. That's how I just see it like that. I don't have any regret as far as I love every aspect of my life. Even this ugly shit, I didn't love it, but I love that I went through it and I proved it and I grew up to prove it, even though it took me 40 years. And I still bring up my son. I pretty much, it's like the ultimate FU to the alienator, right? I didn't repeat what she did. I didn't, even as a stepmom. So whether it's resilience or just living your truth, that's hard to do when you do grow up alienated, because you're not living in your truth. You're living a false belief system.
Exactly. And that is also what the alienator is doing as well. They're in their false narrative and their brainwashing with the Stockholm syndrome. Let's see here. I was just seeing that. I had it on one page about the Stockholm syndrome. But
yeah,
that's some pretty serious, weird, okay, the emotional and mental boundary crossing. Yeah, this is like, okay, these include being invasive, reading journals, invalidating others' feelings, telling people what they feel, putting down and disrespecting others, controlling others with fear. There's your Stockholm syndrome, nitpicking, shaming, and name calling, eye rolling, hiding information, spreading gossip, not protecting children from others, inappropriate touching, teasing children about puberty, leering, and leaving pornography laying around. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Anything that they could do to shame you is a way to control you, right? Because if you feel shame, you're going to stay silent because no one's going to believe you.
Right.
And kids at 7, I think in my book I remember screaming the top of my lungs, I hate divorce, just screaming. And my dad was there and my stepmom was there. And she, I remember just my whole body. I hated what was happening and I didn't know why. And today I know exactly why.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to come out and say, you were messing with my attachment to both my parents.
Mm-hmm.
All to understand, because there's a lot of parents that don't understand the importance of an attachment, a secure attachment. And when that is ripped from a child and it's at different ages, it's hell.
Mm-hmm.
It's horrible. And we all, that's what divorce does. And it doesn't have to, divorce should just be divorcing the spouse. That secure attachment should be on the forefront for both parents that are getting a divorce. And when it's not, then we have all of this alienation and
the thing is, the thing is that I was just reading that I showed you before we got on the air.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll read this to you because you just said when people divorce, sometimes they meet someone really quick.
Mhm.
It's just things seem to move really quick. I mean, sometimes the second marriage doesn't work. Sometimes the third marriage doesn't work. Sometimes
Right.
people go through this 5 times. But here on page 129, teenagers can also feel the personal loss of a parent who has moved out of the house. They may not receive any help in dealing with these intense feelings. Often they are afraid to talk about the loss since they worry that the subject may cause pain to the present parent with whom they're living. The focus may be on the grieving mother or father. As a result, many teenagers may never go through mourning the loss of their intact family. And I've always said this, that when people remarry quickly, even after, let's say, even a death of a parent, if they move quickly, you've got to let those kids have time to grieve.
Right. Right. Yeah, 100%. That's one of the biggest issues is when, and I always say, well, it's the parents' attachment disorder. They can't be alone. They go from relationship to relationship. It's like you are not healing. You're bringing in from that marriage because it takes two people there. And, it's always, oh no, I was perfect and he was bad. Come on. I was married for 20 years. No, I own my stuff too. Like, let's just be real here. It takes, and this is what the kids see. Yeah, it is. I didn't really mourn. Well, I mourned it when I knew I found out it was alienated and I went through a lot of different therapy, but I mourned it again, reliving it and writing the book because I felt it more because I didn't have my husband anymore, who was the band-aid, right? Like he was the, I guess it's like if you want to really dig deep, okay, I didn't realize at the time, but I married a little bit of my mom and my dad. That's what we do. It served a purpose. And I'm so grateful for my ex-husband and the friendship that we have, and we still do. It's just when he went away, I felt it. I felt it while I was writing the book. And I express in my book, it doesn't matter that I'm a grown woman with a 30-year-old son. I have my parents now. Now I am close with my mom and my dad. you know, I can just tell you, oh no, just like a parent grieves the loss for their kid, just like they yearn, you know, you just yearn, that's what happens. So that's why, you know, humans, all of us, you know, if we don't do that work, we'll end up with the same type of person, the same patterns, because we all have these negative love patterns that I address in the book.
Mhm.
So yeah, yeah, I grieved it in probably mid-40s, and then I really grieved hard when because now I'm surrounded by people that are going through it, and there are millions, and that's what's heartbreaking, because it doesn't have to be. We can work to fix this through educating and not
Mhm.
blaming or not casting, you know, and it's it's really from a kid who had to grow up and as an adult who had to grow up, you really see how bad it is to just hurry up and get into a relationship. I waited a couple of years,
Mhm.
and I made sure that, even though I even told my husband, give me 10 years, he has to come first, or he has to know that. And thank God that Greg was able to love me so that I could put my son first, because a lot of people won't. A lot of step parents, they get jealous.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I can see that. Same. I mean, I'm very lucky with my spouse that he wasn't jealous. Of course, he worked out of town all the time, but so, you know, it was it was a very pleasant household. But even when he was here, it was a pleasant household because it's like I had 4 kids, which I always wanted 4 kids, but you know, he was playing PlayStation with the boys, and it's like it was just fun. And I wish that for every parent when they go to remarry, they find someone like that who puts the kids first and, you know, treats them as their own, but does not interfere or create a wedge in between the co-parenting relationship or the relationships with the children.
Right. So how does a man or a woman know that they're going to, you know, they're going to bring this person into their life? And, you know, how do they know? Like, right? Like,
Mhm.
because what if you're really in love with this person, and then like your kids don't like them, and it has nothing to do with that other person? It has to do with the fact that, well, mom and dad, you kind of got divorced, but you forgot to tell us, and we're really confused on the inside. And when your parents don't talk, then you get two narratives, he said, she said, and then you get the step parent. And like I explained in my book, when you get a pattern, you know, from one parent, it's one pattern. When your parents divorce and nobody gets along and there's all this chaos and you're rebelling, you get two. So you're in a constant, you can't grow up. You're always like surfing. Okay, I have to say this for my mom and her spouse. Now I have to go here and say this for my dad and his spouse. And all the parents are just like this, you know, constantly back and forth, and nobody is nurturing and loving that child and raising them to their full potential. And that's what kids want.
Mhm.
And you see it all the time. You know, please get along with my, you know, mom and dad. You see the little kids, they'll put them on TikTok, and they're, you know, that little 30-year-old's adorable. She doesn't understand in her mind, she's repeating and it sounds adorable, but that is the truth. And I don't know how you cannot look in this world and not see how catastrophic these relationships are. Like, great, get a divorce, but don't you dare let your child lose that attachment. And then you have the courts that, I'm sorry, Marianne, but I know there are a lot of narcissists out there. I get it. But if you call my dad or my mom a narcissist and I'm an alienated kid, I'm not going to go near you. I'm going to say no. I did it all the time. So all these people that are trying to like raise awareness on TikTok, I can really say some things right now. Kids that are not healed,
Mhm.
God bless them. But I've had to deal with a lot of how can I put this? Uh, uh, anger and frustration from one alienated child on TikTok. Her name is Madison. I'm not afraid to speak the truth, but she tried to have my book. She didn't want the book to come out, or she would try to, she tried to diminish my book. She was alienated for 20 years. I was alienated for 40. However, it took almost 8 years to get to where I'm at now. You need the time to heal. And what happens is when you find out you're alienated, you're so angry. When you are angry, you cannot be in the present and you cannot help. So you're doing it out of anger. And when you do something out of anger, you're not being your authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really unfortunate that whether it's a stepmom supporting her, a father's rights movement supporting her, but it's not working. I am not going away. I started the Stephood Project to help kids from divorce, because kids from divorce are the alienated kids. If you go around saying you've been parentally alienated and you're triggered, it doesn't work. It's so frustrating. And when you have survivors using words like, if you watch my TikToks, I don't talk about the psychological effects so much. I talk about what it feels like, what it does, because when you hear something negative about your parent that you love and you're alienated, you're going to automatically, just because that's what the mind and body does, you're going to automatically say, F you, you're lying. Because our first pattern that most humans grow up with is denial. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's about encouraging kids, not telling them to hate their other parents. Because in order to heal, there's a lot of compassion that needs to take place for everyone in the family. Mm-hmm. And even for me, I have tons of compassion for both my parents. Even my dad, I said something the other day, and someone said, are you trauma bonded with your dad? I love my dad. That's compassion. A lot of the people that have studied this are trying to, they're taking the human aspect out of it. We're human. We're not just labels with no feelings. And, it's all cookie cutter. When you're spreading negative things about parental alienation, you're making it harder and you're pushing them away. I have right now maybe almost 30,000 hits on my TikTok, which is a lot, but not as where I want it to be. But a lot of them are kids, so I'm very careful on my TikToks. Mm-hmm. So in case you watch me on my TikToks, just know I am specifically careful on my TikToks because I know the kids are watching, and I honestly want them to know that they don't have to grow up and be anything that is written about parental alienation syndrome. PA happens to kids by their parents. We are not born with it. It is patterns that, at least for me in my case, it's frustrating.
Mm-hmm. But your TikToks are really professional. They're really well done. I mean, I think you're great on there.
Sometimes I get a little feisty because, you get some, not to bash step parents, but step back already. This is alienation. This isn't your normal situation where it's because it's hard enough to be in a step family. But when you have alienation, step back. You are harming that child and you are harming your relationship. As I can tell you right now, my dad, when Dr. Bernet wrote the foreword to my book.
Oh, yes. And
yeah.
Right. And you've got the 5-factor model in here too.
Yes. Yeah. I am living, walking proof here to help as many people as I can with the truth, not lies. I'm not going to tell parents what they need to hear because that's not going to help them. And parents will pay tons of money that it doesn't help. Like they're not closer to their kids. I understand why. And some kids, I think they just fake it, like in their late teens, because they're figuring, okay, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to get out of here soon. It's horrible. And so it's fascinating that it's fascinating how many people come out of the woodworks and say that they're experts. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you, like, so going back, let me circle back. When my dad, I don't know if my dad is, I told my dad not to read the book. Dad, don't read it. You already know, I didn't want him to read it. He's like, why? And I'm like, because I read the first page, the foreword from Dr. Bernet. So going back to like the step parent that doesn't want to step back.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that my dad just wants all of his kids. He just wants his 3 kids to get along. So, we get along. My stepmom is their mom.
Right.
And I couldn't stay silent anymore. And the pain on my dad, and imagine being married 30-some years and all that hate and all that stuff that she did to my mom, that all these other alienators are doing as well. He comes back. And I wrote this for myself to help, because I knew this wasn't just about me. But we do grow up and figure it out. And guess what, parents? We still love both our parents. We should.
Oh,
If they're mentally ill, that's between me and my parents. You don't need strangers telling me. And that was another thing that got between me reuniting with my mom, was all the noise and all the muddiness, right? It wasn't until my mom got off the groups, because all she could see me was through the lens of all the expert psychologists about being a pathological liar. It's all like, it's inhumane. And all it was like, my mom needed to be heard. I needed to be heard. And so she couldn't look at me without seeing the labels. And so people that use labels, like psychological labels, nobody, I mean, if you've got something going on mentally in your mind, you're not okay in your body, because the body and mind have to work together.
mm-hmm.
So it's really, really important. If you are an alienated kid and you just found out, you're about 5 years of healing before I think you should take a public statement, or take a project forward and try to dismantle my book. Really, like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I don't know if that was her or step parents doing it, but that's it. And to not even read it and still try to do that, that just says a lot about what's really going on.
Oh, definitely. There's no one that can dismiss this book. This book says it all. And
Right.
when because what these step parents or even parents don't understand, you've listed the 5-factor model of Dr. Bernet, the contact refusal. And this happens all the time. And it happens a lot in family court. That's the first thing they go after. They write the no contact orders. I don't know why. Then there's the positive relationship prior to contact refusal, the absence of abuse or neglect on the part of the alienated parent. That's a big one, because people throw around false accusations all the time in order to get their kids so they don't have to pay child support. That's the whole name of the game.
Right.
And then there's the alienating behaviors of the preferred parent. And then there's the child manifesting symptoms of parental alienation, which is so sad.
Mm-hmm. But there's symptoms, and symptoms aren't meant to last forever. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where, having a healthy mindset helps, because when you're a kid, and there were many times where I missed my mom, but because back in the day, she, and I explained in the book, she was just, I was the latchkey kid. It's just the baby boomers, so they were a little tougher, do what I say, not what I do.
Uh-huh.
And you're alienated, that alienator uses your own personality, your own good traits, and they twist them.
Oh, yes.
So it can be really, really just disempowering for a child, because you need your mom, you need your dad, but you heard that they're really bad or they don't care about you.
Mhm.
So it's for a step parent to, I get that you want to support your spouse. I will say this, I will say this because there's, when you have a stepmom and okay, or a stepdad, and they are being protective over their spouse, right? And that, what you're doing, if you're like obnoxious and that's my ex, that's my husband, and don't you talk that way to him, and you're not gonna, all that just drama and noise, and the kids are watching, you're telling, if you're a dad, you're telling your child, dad can't protect himself, he needs his wife. So now I have to protect dad. That's a problem. And with our fathers, or they put their head in the sand. And that's because, that's just been a long-term pattern, because because of false accusations. And so men get really stuck in this, and they want to trust the person they're with. And then you have the ex-wife saying, oh, look at your dad left you and doesn't love you anymore. He has a whole brand new family. And so these kids are just enduring all this BS.
It is. Because you also wrote, like, on page 136, how do you know it is parental alienation and not justified rejection? In a case where child rejects contact with a parent, an evaluator can determine if the rejection is unwarranted, which is called parental alienation, by making a thorough investigation of the empirical facts over time. If the child has a legitimate reason to reject a parent, it's called estrangement. But what I'm also hearing, and I don't know if you're hearing this as well, but there are adult children, I don't know why I said that. There's adults that were kids, but they're rejecting their parents. And the cases that are explained to me are almost like just for no reason or something petty. They're just, I don't know if this is some fad where these adults are throwing their parents to the side and not caring about them at all. They just up and leave.
We've created, TikTok has 1.1 billion toxic parents. We are normalizing having bad parents. Great. When you have other parents talking about how bad a baby bitter mama is, or how bad deadbeat daddy is, all the parents have been enforcing this type of culture now that we live in, because now it's not a cool thing to not like your parents. I would say for most, when you're in your like 30s, or you're still growing up, like I wouldn't want to be 30 anymore, but I'm just saying you're still growing up. So sometimes when parents don't validate their child's experience, a lot of times, a lot of parents, they're so attuned to hearing it's just one parent and one bad parent. And at the end of the day, every time that child, if you were a parent and your child was alienated, and you're constantly saying you were alienated, you're telling that child it's more important for you to find out that you were alienated before we can have a relationship. So that the child will feel, at least I was like that. I was estranged from my mom as well. They call it, you're alienated, and then you pull back because there's no space in between. There's no room, because the parent is so adamant about proving the false accusations. And I get it, because the kid is like, but you did this and you did that. And it's like, both of their nervous systems are working at the highest level. And so it's like you're fighting a war that can't fight it. So what I would do if that were me, I would be like, you know what? You believe what you need to believe. I love you no matter what. that opens up space. That allows, oh, that kind of dismantles a little bit of that fight or flight, that anguish, that anger, because if they're estranged, they're hurt. They're staying away because they're hurt. If they were severely like I was severely alienated, I was. There's no doubt about that. That was and that's a record right there. But I still have a relationship with mom.
Mm-hmm.
What does that tell you? That means that, yeah, there is hope for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And that estrangement is also that way of that 30-year-old, I'm assuming 30, because by the time you're a parent and you raise your own child, you kind of start to think differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that estrangement is a way to protect themselves, because that's what I did. I got away. I didn't want to go back because I really knew what it was. And I'm almost grateful, because it would be really hard to be in a space where you have parents constantly look at your mom says you're alien, your dad says you're not. And then this is all the horrible things that are going to happen to you, and it just dehumanizes. So I think part of that estrangement is their way of protecting themselves, because the other parent, they haven't been able to connect on a even playground, on an even, slate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's really important. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just that, I mean, like, I know of, 2 intact families. Like, there was no game plan. The parents had stayed married, and the kids just up and did an about face and just broke contact and started calling the parents names. Do you
The
think?
kids are brats.
Oh yeah.
Some kids, I'm sorry, but some kids are just they had 2 loving parents that didn't abuse them, or maybe they made some mistakes. Unless I would do I would have loved for to know what it was like to have parents intact. And I always say that. I'm like, look, oh, your parents stayed together? Yeah, shut up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I get it. Like some kids grow up and their parents are still married and they wish they would have got divorced. So, we've normalized toxic parenting, and it doesn't help when you throw in step parents that have their own. I mean, I don't know. There's one site called Bitter Baby Mamas.
Mm-hmm.
38,000 in a group. Of course we're not. Yeah. Oh well, my stepmom says, "Mom, we're normalizing it."
Mm-hmm.
They're attacking their families from the inside out.
Yeah.
Yeah, kids that are estranged are hurt because they are not being heard by their parents. Look, it took my mom 40 years in the proof for her to wake up and go, holy crap. And parents are always shocked. Wait, your parents, then you're an anomaly. And like, read it. Like, if you had to read your own child's experience and with the proof, it helps. And plus it helps when you're older, and it's like, well, Mom, I already raised my son, so like come on. Like, I just think that kids choose to be estranged, one, either out of protection, or I hope it's not a trend, because their relationships are gonna hurt, but they're gonna be overprotective parents, and that's not good either. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's toxic as well, to be too overprotective.
You're hanging around people that don't have positive relationships with their family or their parents. Estrangement's going to feel more normal. It's going to feel like, oh, it happened to you too. That's why one of the things I write in my book or not? I'll have to add to it. And I wish I would have. Was one of the things is, if you're alienated or you find out, make sure that you surround yourself with people that are healthy and have positive relationships. Because that's why groups can, especially alienated, that is a minefield. Unless you have done the work and you know the tools how to navigate around that, you're going to reinforce those pathways, and they're just going to be angry.
So sad to, even live their lives like this. Things like this should never happen to a child or the target parent.
I know and even for me, Marianne, to be honest, because I don't know any different. I do now. I don't know if I would have been able to handle it as well at 18. I would have found out. I don't know if that would have, because some people are like, as soon as my kid's 18, I'm gonna shove this up there, this is what happened. And it's like, they don't want to hear that. They want you to know about them. They want you to ask questions about what they want in their life and all about them. They don't want to hear about the past. The past is going to trigger them until you get their nervous system down, until they feel safe. Because you can't erase childhood. So that foundation part of our brain, right, is like, I have a lot of shit in my subconscious because of that. But it also, I use it for good. But still, it's hard. Even sometimes I'll be with my mom and I'm like, oh wait, I'll feel like I'm gonna get triggered. I'm like, oh wait, she's just protecting me. Let her, it's okay. But it's a lot of work for your alienated child to make space for their parent. If it's different when you're alienated and you know your parent, because then there's more of this desire to know. But when you've known your parent and you know nothing but lies, there's so much resistance. So, and it's visceral, it's in our bodies. So our bodies are always speaking before our minds. Like, you work with the body, right? So there's so much education that and awareness that will help. That's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, this book is a wealth of knowledge. I saw the pattern of a detached mom and unprotective dad patterns. And it's like, boy, you just nailed everything on the head. Because, okay, so if, say someone is a target parent and they get the kids for the weekend, they also feel like they're walking on eggshells around these kids. Like they can't be themselves because the other party at the other house is, say, bad mouthing them. And these target parents, when they're in this horrible family court situation, I don't know, what advice to give these parents as to just, try to just, I don't know, put on a happy face and win the Oscar award. I mean,
I think, let me help with you. So patterns are old energy, and we all have them. So when we're in a pattern, right? Say, oh no, my kids are coming. Oh God, what's going to happen? Are they going to, the body snatchers snatch them again? I don't know this child. They're angry all the time. They're distant. So if you're automatically going into this pattern of my kid doesn't love me, they just see me through the lenses of that alienator. So that's energy. So the energy that we project is the energy we're going to get. So in order to change that dynamic, you have to work with your own energy. You have to do a lot of self-reflective, I would say, write out everything like, okay, my son's coming home for the weekend. I am nervous about this. And when he comes in the house and he's moody, I am not going to take it personally. That is his coping mechanism. He didn't get a proper relationship with his parents. His attachment to me has been severed. I, as a parent, have to show him a better way to be in this world. And being anxious and walking on eggshells, while is so understandable, it's just going to create more of that negative energy. And kids that are alienated or have gone through trauma, or anyone, we can pick up on, at least I know I can, and I'm sure you can pick up on that negative energy, right? You can feel it. It feels heavy. So you want to be able to maybe, take it slow and know that you're doing the best you can But there are, and I'm going to be offering that. There are all tools and things that parents can, you're equipped. First of all, you are equipped. You are given the God, natural right to birth and have that child. You are already equipped. It's the noise from the PA and the trauma that keeps parents in a hypervigilant state, holding them.
Mm-hmm. Are you there? Hello, hello.
Okay.
So these targeted parents have a very uncomfortable time, even when their kids come over and they want to have a good time.
Because they're thinking, yeah, and it's normal because their nervous system is agitated or is dysregulated too, which mine even gets dysregulated if I feel like I'm gonna, have a moment with my son where it's like, oh, I didn't mean it. So it's normal for even people that are not alienated.
Mm-hmm.
So, especially the older they get, because they're smart, and it's like, damn it, it's normal. It's just self-compassion for yourself is so important, because when you can hold self-compassion for yourself, you're also teaching your kids you can hold self-compassion. And self-compassion means loving every aspect of yourself. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know, honey, if you're walking on eggshells, I'm sorry. I want you to walk on diamonds. I don't want you to walk on eggshells. This is bullshit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we let's live in the now, because
Right.
when you're living in the past, and this is one thing that will trigger even the best of divorced kids, and I talk about it in my book, one of the worst patterns parents get into is not getting over the past. So the need to talk about the divorce and what happened, and like, okay, but I'm like 40 now, Dad. I'm 40 now, Mom. We're talking about the same shit.
Uh-huh.
And and it's like they couldn't, and really that's for the parents individually, whether it's the mom or the dad that's struggling, you gotta let that go. Because if you hold on to all that negative past, it's gonna continue to show up in your present. And it's like, but how do you let go of somebody that hurt you so bad? Well, because by letting go, then I'm free from it. I'm not attached to those negative belief systems. And that's how you break through. We tend to complicate things so much. And
Uh-huh.
it's like, you're talking about your child that you bore, that you held, that you changed their diaper. The world is so noisy. The safest place we should feel, I'm giving you chills, is
Aw.
parents. And when that is stripped from you and you're alienated, you're always on defense, because you don't know how to be, because you're constantly, you grew up having to be a puppet for everyone, and now you're an adult, and so it could come across as like, oh, my child's being this strange punk. Maybe your child is so tired of the toxicity that went on, and they don't want to talk about it. They want to live in the now,
Mm-hmm.
because this is their life. Just our job as parents is to raise them, love them, and let them fly, not to keep them stunted in a past that doesn't serve them or anyone.
But how come some of them just they want to move forward, yet they do stay in the past. One parent was telling me they were asking their daughter, I want to know how, we'll say, Johnny is. I want to know how Johnny is because, I heard through the grapevine he's depressed in college. And then that kid will say, I don't want to talk about the past. It's like, I'm not bringing up the past. I'm just asking how your brother is.
Right.
But that must be some type of trigger.
Yeah. If when, because we hold a lot of shame when we're alienated, right? There's shame because you're told that your mom is bad or your dad is bad. And this is why I really advise parents, please unite, don't fight. Because all the fighting is doing between moms, dads, and step parents, specifically stepmoms. There's not a whole lot of stepdads out there, maybe some, but I don't know if it has to do with being female or not, but hey. I mean, I understand there's no judgment, like seriously, no judgment. Who's ever listening, this is just for education. But when you are growing up and you're so, you don't know what you lack that life experience. So the parents are trying to, you're worried, like you're depressed, I'm worried. So for that kid, they already feel shame. And now they're like, okay, now there's my mom who's going to trigger me. I don't want to talk about it right now. So a lot of times, especially in our early 20s and even in our late teens, our friends and who we surround ourselves is so crucial, because sometimes it can't be a parent that can help. A parent can help in different ways, but sometimes a parent can't really help their child until that child is ready to open up. So you can't, it's like, I get it. It's just some kids they're just triggered. They want to be adults, and at the same time they don't. And that's really confusing because something may have happened to them and they don't know how to ask for help. Know how to bring it up.
Yeah, that's interesting. It
feels horrible to be depressed. Being depressed is a part of life. That's part of being human. It is. It's a really ugly part. It's when you're depressed for a long time. That's not healthy. Nobody wants to be depressed for a long time. And especially when you're young, that should be like the happy times.
Right.
And for many kids, it's not, especially after 2020. So, just no matter what you're feeling, how you're feeling on the inside, son or daughter, I love you. I got you. When kids feel loved, heard, seen, not diagnosed, labeled, and seen as a, effed up, alienated kid, narcissist just like their dad, they're going to stay away.
So that parent who is saying, hey, Johnny, I just want to know how your alienated, the parent didn't say your alienated sister. Johnny, I just want to know how, Sally's doing in school because I've heard, she's depressed. And then that Johnny blows up and says, I don't want to talk about the past. And the parent saying, I'm not.
Okay, yeah. When we approach our other kids and ask them about our other siblings, and we're going through our own shit that our parent doesn't know, it could feel like, what about me, mom? What about me? What am I going through? This is hard for me. I have a sister, like my brother and I are super close, and sibling relationships are so important because they outlast our parents, right? Because, parents pass and then we have our siblings. So it's like, my brother and I have the same, like, I got you too. Like, it's really important that a parent show concern as well. Like, hey, is your sister depressed? Like, are you okay with that? Like, do you want me to do, like, ask him for advice instead of like, what would you do? Like, kids, they want to be involved. It's about connecting with them because it could feel like, okay, he cares about her, but not about me. Middle children probably feel that a lot, I'm assuming, but I've talked to kids like that where it's like all they care about is or in a lot of families, they value the man more, right? The boys more. The women are just there.
Yeah.
It's cultural.
Right.
So it's cultural. So, it could be that Johnny felt he was going through something and he didn't want to talk about his sister. He wanted to talk about what's going on for him. And it kind of puts Johnny in a place where he feels like, I don't want to talk about my sister because what she has, because it puts him almost like in a loyalty thing. Like, and so like my brother and I have a pact. It's like, no matter what, I got you. Like we both, he'll tell me like, you're being kind of, yeah, they'll be like, I get it. I get how mom can be. And he also can see like, wow, Lisa, I'm so proud of you. Like you're really like turning towards my mom instead of pushing away. So I hope that helps. But it could be because Johnny felt he was going through something that day and he needed someone to talk to.
Right. It's just, these target parents don't know how to even talk to these children that are coming out of the alienation.
That's where I come in.
Yeah.
in between stage where it's like they're home, but they're still really screwed up. I can't get through. What the hell do I do? I got you. I got this. This is my specialty. I know exactly what's going on, what works and what doesn't. It's in our bodies. And because the moment I would walk into my Target, like my mom's house, Target, my mom, right? I had so much anxiety, it was normal. It was normal. And then it wasn't. And you go back and you're like, holy shit, this is how I felt at 14 years old. And I'm 50. The body remembers. And then I'll just sit there and I'll tell my mom, like, Mom, yeah, 14-year-old Lisa showed up. She goes, oh no, I go, it's okay, I got her. Like we play in the present and we make the best out of it. And I love that about her. I really do. And here's what I hope every alienated kid finds out. When you find out you're alienated and you take that brave step to go towards healing yourself whole, then you see how cool and awesome your mom is or your dad is. You get pissed and you're like, what a ripoff. And then there's this gratitude and the sense of, but even though I missed out a lot, I'm talking a lifetime, my son I didn't alienate him. I didn't alienate my son from my mom. I didn't do those things. And I can tell you the best parts of me are because of who my parents are. And the rest is on me. So parents just have to like, just buy my book. Buy my book, you can understand, the perspective of what it's really like. And it's not so scary. It's not so scary once you understand it. Once you understand it as a human level, instead of like diagnosing it and it's trauma. We don't leave this world without experiencing trauma. And we're not going to.
Well, I mean, I'd like to have you back on again because there's more stuff in your book that we've got to talk.
What was one question that you wanted to ask? Because I'm sure you could probably edit some of the things I said, but what was another question you had? Curious.
Well, the one question I had is, well, let me see here. It's when, okay, as a targeted parent, you may have we'll say 3 kids that like you and you're alienated from the one. And then when you're asked, oh, how many kids do you have? You're like, oh, well, I have 3, and it's hard to, say to people, the other party turned them against me to hate me.
Yeah. Okay, so I would I would say I have 4 kids, 3 of them like me and one of them's on the fence.
Oh,
You don't have to tell everybody your business. Not everybody's going to understand it. And when you do speak the pain, we reinforce those pathways. That's why it's really important to do the healing and understand. So when you're speaking in the present, but you're not in the past. So you're just like, yeah, I got, it's like, I got 4 kids and 3 of them like me and one of them doesn't. And if they ask, oh, why, or what's going on? I'm like, you really want to know? And then, you don't really have to like get nervous about all that, because once you know your truth, you don't have to explain to anybody. Explanations are for jail.
Yeah. In so many ways.
Right? So I just think that if you speak your truth, even who cares if somebody is like, oh, that's horrible, you mean that happened? You know what, if they're a parent, I'm sorry, but it's not easy being a parent. There's no manual for it. Well, there kind of is now, but
Yeah.
honestly, it's okay to fail as a parent a little. It's okay to make mistakes. We're supposed to. That's how the kids learn, to do things differently. But to try to, feel bad about something that you really had no control over, that's just shame. And that shame is keeping you away from your truth. And the truth is, you've got 4 kids, and right now one of them doesn't want to talk to you. And hopefully that'll change. It's not, at least you got 3 other ones. It's okay. It's okay to live your truth and not be ashamed that your kid's pissed off at you right now. If anything, it would be more shameful to force a kid to like you because you had to lie about another parent. Like, alienators are the ones that should be walking in shame, like, oh no, they're all going to catch me right now. Like, there's going to be like, if you're an alienator, you have to wear an X on your back so people know, like, oh, we can't trust you.
Right.
You're hurting kids. So that's where the shame belongs. The shame does not belong to the targeted parent. And that's a big issue. So for any parents that is listening, please do not hold on to that shame. That shame is for the alienator. That shame is internalized from the alienator, pointed at you. Kick it back and say, no, that is not coming into my heart space, my orbit. I love my kids. You are not. You can say whatever you want, but my actions are going to speak for themselves.
Definitely. Well said. And I'd like to have you come back on. How can people find your book?
They can find it. It's available everywhere, but they can find it on Amazon. And again, stepmotherproject.org. And I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.
Excellent. Excellent. I'm going to have you back on again, so don't jump off. Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I am your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth, and the recently released Raised by These Wolves, How Family and Federal Courts Are Failing Our Children. Please join us again here with Lisa Goodpaster in the future, and you can find me on Spotify, YouTube, Apple iTunes, Anchor FM, and pretty much everywhere. But this is Lisa's book. And you can also feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep the podcast going. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you.